So, another Friday is upon us.
G'day. Welcome to my show, WTF, Widowed Trio and Freedom. I have a very special guest, as I do always, but this guy is amazing. I have Ken Hall in the house. He's the dean of the business college, and he's done some pretty amazing things in his life, and I think he's got some good messages for us. The other thing too, if you want to see us live, you can go to YouTube at Widowed Trio and Freedom. So widowed, I'm a widowed dad. Trio, I have two little boys. Freedom, I do this to give freedom to all of us. Hopefully we can release some things on our minds and what we're thinking about and what we're going through, and hopefully it can help us. Ken, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks.
Yeah. I've been looking forward to this. I've been looking you up a little bit here and there. You've done some amazing things in this world. I mean, you picked Cedar City to live. Do you love it here?
I do. I love Southern Utah. I actually live in St. George, but I drive up to Cedar every day.
Wow.
Just love it here.
It's yeah. So that's to be. I mean, you really could work anywhere, huh?
I have. We've lived in Los Angeles. We've lived in Phoenix, Dallas, Houston. We've lived all over, but this is where we want to be.
Yeah, I love that. Where did you grow up?
I actually grew up in Rochester, New York, upstate New York.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Beautiful part of the world.
Yeah, I was just up there a few 2 months back.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah,
it was
just
a fun
love
time.
it there.
Yeah, it's very pretty. Very, very pretty.
Yeah, a little more snow than Cedar City or St. George this time of year. They
Yeah.
just got dumped on with some lake effect snow, but I don't miss that, but just loved living there. Great place to grow up.
I went up at the turn of the season, just as it was getting autumn.
Oh, beautiful.
And it was, gorgeous, man.
Leaves
Some
and
of the
all that
hikes,
too. Yep.
Yeah. We went to that Eternal Flame place up there and all that. Yeah, that's not
Beautiful.
bad. So, where did you start out in life? Was it there?
Yeah, I actually was born in Washington State, Richland, Washington. Spent a little bit of time in Provo as my parents were finishing up school, and then went out to New York and grew up in Rochester from the time I was about 1.5 years old until I left home.
Wow. So, and then mom and dad are still in the same place, so that you guys like all tight growing up and that?
We were really tight. They originally moved out to Rochester. My dad's from Texas. My mom's from Idaho. They moved out to Rochester for 3 years, but ended up staying for 30.
Wow.
And so they live now, spend half their time in Phoenix, and then spend half their time in St. George.
I love that.
Yep.
That's a snowbird of the best.
Absolutely, yeah. They come to St. George for the summer to cool off from Phoenix, so a little different.
That makes sense too, and that gets hot down there.
It gets
Phoenix.
warm.
Phoenix is crazy. What are the biggest things? Like, did you grow up sports? What created the strategy that you bring to the table?
You know, there are probably a couple things. I just loved being involved, and I was very fortunate to do so. I played football. I wrestled in the winter. I loved being in the theater. I sang. I played in the band. I just loved getting involved, and I had lots of opportunities to do that. So lots of fun. I love to balance kind of the being on stage, either singing or being in the theater, and then coming from football practice over to practice a dance number for the musical we were working on. It was a little mind-bending for some of my friends, but I just loved it.
Yeah, that's at a time where you either did one or the other. You're either in theater or you're in football.
Yeah.
I had a couple of friends that one friend in particular reminds me that he did football and he did acting, and some of the guys would give him hell for it.
Absolutely.
And he would just say, "You guys don't understand what this is doing for me." And the guy is killing it now. He's doing really good in business, and it just gave him an array of all sorts of things for his tool belt.
I found that really helpful. I loved sports, especially football. And there was a team. You were part of a team. You had to do your share, and if everyone worked, it worked. And so I loved that, and I loved the physicality of it. I just loved going out and working out every day. The same thing, it was interesting with theater. I had more confidence in how to speak, how to present myself, how to think on my feet a little bit. Things always go wrong.
Yeah.
And you've got an audience in front of you. What are you going to do? And so I think the combination of kind of the choir theater side and the sports side ended up really helpful for me.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to it. Like you say, for people out there, if you're thinking about raising kids and how to raise kids, this will just give you a quick breakdown of football is extremely physical. So you're learning how to use your body at a rapid rate, real fast, right?
Absolutely.
Where theater, it's kind of like mind jujitsu. It's it's kind of like what stand-ups talk about. You're thinking about what you're saying in a second or two, so there's a delay, but you train your mind to go through that.
I've got a daughter who has spent some time doing improv.
Yeah.
And just the ability to immediately sense and react, those around you, and to respond. There's a skill there that's different. Football, you're watching someone come at you, and you're preparing physically. On the stage, you're doing the same thing. Someone's coming at you, but it's not a physical response. But how are we going to work together? How do we create something together that's unique?
Yeah, that's something very important, actually. Especially, like I say, the people skills involved in that, the interaction. Football, it's like when you guys have synergy and you make a play and it all works out. Oh my goodness,
it's awesome.
It's so powerful, hey.
Yeah.
And it's the same as when you're going on stage. I've done both myself. I did rugby league in Australia.
Oh, did you really? Awesome.
I played rugby league there, and I acted over here. So I spent a solid 10 years in the game of acting, and on stage and down in LA, and I did improv on Sunset a bunch of times. Yeah, it was so fun. Trains your mind in so many different ways, though.
You got to be sharp.
Yeah, you got to be on it. So, who was the influence for the football, and who was the influence for the theater?
So, football clearly came from my dad.
Yeah.
Growing up in Texas, he played football. He was really good, apparently. We've gone back to visit over the years, and a friend of his or a cousin will come up to him and, hey, do you remember that play? Back in that game in 1960 when you. And my dad just kind of, he doesn't remember it as well, but he just loved it. So he was an inspiration there. On the theater side, to be honest, my mother kind of loved music. I don't know that I ever had anyone that was the inspiration there. It just kind of happened one day. There was a tryout for a musical. And I said, well, go try out. I like singing. We'll see what happens. And then just kind of fell in love with it. I don't act anymore. I did a tiny little bit in community theater a few years ago, but I still love going to the theater.
Yeah. No, it's something special. It takes a lot, man, because you not only the time that you have on stage is like maybe let's say if that's an hour you on stage, there's 16 hours behind that you learn all the words and trying to put it all together. It's quite the feat, you know what I mean? Especially when you're disciplined in both sides. That's pretty cool.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I believe so. I think sports are good to coach. Like I say, in team environments and things like that, it teaches you how to play well with others and how to really work, and put something together that has a deadline to it,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that triggers you. Okay, so as you're growing up, you're doing all these, you're going well. What college did you attend to? What did you do in that aspect of your life there, around college and that?
So really interesting. My parents had a real strong focus on going to college, and I think that came from my dad's struggle to go to college. On my mom's side of the family, all her family had gone to school, and that was just an expectation. And my mother was just plain brilliant academically. My dad, on the other hand, none of his family had ever gone to college before, and there wasn't really an expectation, kind of the opposite. But my dad had decided that he wanted to go. He was the youngest child in the family by a few years. And growing up, my grandmother had always spent time reading with my dad. So he had decided he wanted to go to college. The family didn't have any money. They were very poor. But because he played football so well, he got a scholarship to go to North Texas State. And he was excited about that, working with the coach. And then he asked the question, well, if I get injured, what happens to the scholarship? And the coach was very honest. He said, if you get injured, you can't play, your scholarship goes away. And I don't know why that happened, but that's the way it was. And so my dad, who football was his ticket to school and education and all these things, decided the education was much more important to him than playing football. And so instead of taking the scholarship and playing football, he gave up the scholarship, got a job driving a school bus, and drove a school bus so that he'd have a steady income to make sure that he could pay tuition to go to school. Wow. And I grew up with that story. And between my mom and just kind of her academic brilliance, and my dad, in his stories of all the sacrifice that he went through just to get a degree, be the first one ever to do so. I think my brother and I, we didn't really have much choice. We were going to school, and but at the same time, we also had kind of, it just was in our DNA that, hey, this is something that's important. It matters. I can't tell you how grateful I am for that kind of foundation from my mom and my dad, because I think I am so fortunate to have it. So many people don't have that, but I think that provided a foundation for me that's just been critical.
Wow. Well, you when your dad was going to college, were your parents together at that stage, or was that did they meet in college, or?
They didn't initially. So I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, as are my parents, and they both went on served a mission, Spanish-speaking, in Southwest United States, and they both were serving in Los Angeles at the same time. They met there, and then once they left, they started to write back and forth. That led to kind of a long-distance relationship, and then a great story about how the two of them met and actually got engaged on their first date. My mom will kill me that I mentioned that, but it's a great family story. So.
Oh, wow. There you go, the scoop on that, huh? Going through that, like I look at what you were just talking about, your dad making the decision to go to college, and like to be at that age, I mean, what is he, 19 at the time, 18, 19?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
20.
To be able to have that deductive reasoning of, if I injure myself, who pays? You know what I mean? Oh, you're dropped. Well, that's crazy. I mean, back at that day, too, we got to understand that's a different time. We don't have money like we have money now, right?
Very different time. And where he grew up, football was king. That was, I mean, the whole town, everyone went to the high school football games. It was the event. All year was looking towards football season. And so, understanding the pressure of that decision to not play. That's
crazy.
It's just crazy.
Yeah. What positions do you guys play?
So my dad played center.
Okay.
So front line, and he has photos. I mean, he was a stud. Yeah. I actually played offensive guard, and then JV I played defensive end. But
nice.
We both were linemen, and just loved it. At the time, I was probably a good size for high school football. Didn't have the skill or the size to play beyond high school, but it was great.
Yeah. I was just thinking about that. Like my introduction to in Australia we call it gridiron, but that's the field, right?
Yeah.
We playing football over there. We had American team come out and we played them, one at their game and then one at our game. You know what I mean?
Oh, outstanding! Very cool.
Yeah. In Australia, we just get like small pads. Our pads are just foam. With a cover. Yes. That's it. So we wear that. I think we played our game first, and of course we won because it's a tricky game to play. Period. And then we got geared up to play gridiron, as we thought. American football. And once you put those guards on, like we're little guys, but we had those pads. Man, you feel like you could just run through walls.
Oh yeah.
And then we went up against the Americans. My goodness, that front line, we had no idea what we were doing, but you guys slayed and hit like a wall. It was so much fun. It was like that was my first introduction to American football, and I tell you, it's a very structured game.
It is, and there is a little bit of. You do feel kind of in a protective bubble, because those pads give a lot of protection. You also, I think there's a good conversation now about how do we make sure people stay safe? How do we make sure we protect and deal with concussions properly?
Yeah.
But you do feel, I can remember multiple times, offensive guard, position I just loved, and we would run a lot of kind of a pull play where the guard would kind of pause and then cut over across the line and kind of make the hole. And I just love that feeling of just running through the line and just making space,
creating it.
Yeah.
You're right. Like like I said, when we put we put all the pads on, we're gearing up to go out. We're like, man, we're gonna kill these guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then as soon as we got out there, it was like the first hit. It was like you're always gonna show what you can do. So the Americans like, we're gonna teach these boys, and they did. Man, they hit us like a wall, and I was surprised. You feel protected until you get that first hit.
Oh yeah.
And you realize it's serious.
Yep.
And if you twist or move the wrong way, you could hurt yourself bad. So yeah, it's a kudos to
training's important.
I tell you, man, and the way you guys train too is like you try to build everything up to protect all of it, right?
Yeah, I've never played rugby, but I've looked at that and just the amount of physicality, and you're not bulked up in pads.
Lots of twisting, lots of spinning, trying to get out of it, trying to land softly.
Exactly. There's a
Yeah.
lot more kind of self-preservation is how you move in that versus football.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that they teach us, one of the biggest things is as you tackle, because we're always grab around the
Right.
waist, drop down the bottom, and then we try and roll on our side and get you to spin. You know what I mean? And that's probably the easiest, safest way for us not to get too damaged. Otherwise, if you grab them and you spin them too much and they land on top of you, you can hurt yourself pretty bad, breaking ribs and things like that. You know?
Not fun.
Yeah, not fun at all. Not fun at all. It's fun. I mean, it teaches you. I mean, it's like sports are so. My kids, they do jiu-jitsu. We talked about that a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, I give them. I tell my kids, and I set the standard. Monday to Friday, you do what I ask you to do, right? And I know it's hard, and it's so tight for us. You know, we run even when their basketball games on and stuff. We go to the basketball games here, but their jiu-jitsu finishes at 6:20. So I meet them at jiu-jitsu with food and clothes. We come straight down. You know what I mean? Like we're busy. But I'm so blessed to be able to do this with them. It's so good for them to see all this.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same thing as what your dad was sort of painting for you as far as going back to college and stuff like that. Usually when I get the chance, I bring the kids in. I let them see what I'm doing. I did a speech last 2 semesters ago. I made sure they were there, you know, and they're watching me do all this from nothing.
Yeah.
And they're like, I remember that last year, they were like, man, you're really good on the radio, Dad. And I was like, yeah, it's pretty cool, huh? I just barely started this, guys. Only like this semester. You know what I mean? Like when about a year ago now, actually.
You know, I think that's really good for your kids to actually see you out there doing things, experimenting, trying.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to be successful at everything, and so being able to get out there and kind of see what goes on is a big deal. I think it means a lot to kids.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think so too. It's so important. It's good to get idle minds out there working, you know, and it's going to teach them some things. So I urge anyone out there that's listening that's got some little kids and you know, just spend that extra bit of time. I know it's a little bit of extra money, but it's so worth it. It'll help train them for something bigger later on. It'll give them the tools they need. Okay, so you go to college. Let's talk about you starting to get on your feet and creating your path in life. Where did you start out? What made you, as you're going through college, what was your major? What made you do that? What was your inspiration?
So I'd always liked math, sciences. Those were things that interested me. And when I got on campus, I was trying to look to what to do. And perfectly honest, someone said, "Oh, you know, chemical engineering, it's really hard." I said, "Great, let's learn about chemical engineering." And
Wow.
and so I ended up with a chemical engineering degree. Not a huge chemistry fan. You know, I loved it, but I loved the practical part of engineering. How do things work? There's a lot of theory, but then there's a lot of stuff that we just don't fully understand how everything works, and so it's very empirically based. Well, we don't know why, but this is what happens. And so that kind of problem solving, I just loved. The ability to learn how to learn, to be faced with, okay, you're going to build something, how's it going to work, this is going to happen, how are you going to do that? Those were things that I began to gravitate towards and really just enjoyed that part of the education.
So you like structure?
I do.
Yeah, I can tell you. You're
I
very,
do.
very.
I'm very process-minded. What's really interesting, I haven't done engineering for years, decades. But that fundamental basis of, you know, defining a problem, defining a solution of where you want to go, and then figuring out, okay, how are we going to get to where we're starting, to where we need to end up? That element, those things I just love.
Yeah, it's a lot of planning, but when the plans come through, they work really well. And engineers, I mean, you guys got to be on point to make it work. But so you did that. I mean, that's remarkable. And then what was your first job out of college? What was that?
Yeah, so interesting. I had two opportunities I was kind of pursuing, some different job offers. It was a good time to come out with a chemical engineering degree. Had an opportunity to go back to Rochester, New York, or to go work down in Houston, Texas for Exxon in their largest oil refinery in the United States. Second largest, I think, at the time. And I chose to go work for Exxon, put on hard hat and boots every day, was out in a big oil refinery, and just loved it. Two things I learned there. You come in, you're a brand new engineer, you have zero experience. You know, someone decided to give you a diploma. That's all you got. And you're assigned to, you know, these massive multi-million-dollar parts of the refinery, as the process engineer, but you don't know anything. And you're out there and you're teamed up with these operators that may have been working on that part of the refinery for 10, 20, 30 years. And so one of the things that I really learned to appreciate was the value of experience. So as I had a degree in chemical engineering, there were certain things I was responsible for, but I worked with a guy, his name was Tom Niemeyer, and he was this experienced operator. And we'd go out and we'd walk in the part of the refinery that we were responsible for, and he'd just pause and say, "Hold on, do you hear that?" And there's just all this cacophony of noise going on. I'm like, "I hear what?" He's like, "See that pump over there? 10 feet away? Something's wrong with it. I need you to go look up the data, figure out what's wrong with that pump." I'm like, "Tom, how in the world?" He's like, "It doesn't sound right."
It doesn't have the right tone.
He just had this wealth of knowledge and experience. Didn't come from books, but it really came from learning. And so 2 things I learned. One, experience can come in multiple ways. It doesn't just come at school. There's a lot of experience that comes from life and work. And the second thing, the value of good mentors and the value of not judging. One of the horror stories, and I saw this with a colleague of mine, young engineer comes out, I'm the engineer, I have the degree, you guys don't, you never went to college, you have to listen to me. And those engineers would just smile, "Okay, sir, yes, sir." And that poor engineer, he'd be out of a job in a year or two because couldn't get anything done because he didn't know what he's doing. So real value in learning wherever it comes from, and mentors.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm just analyzing you, and it's pretty cool when you think about it. The fact that you start this job and you're walking in there and it's a refinery. If anyone's been to a refinery, you have no idea what's going on. That's a spaghetti mess.
Oh, it is.
Right?
Pipes everywhere, noise,
yep.
fire. I mean, people die if you're not careful. So it's a scary place.
Yeah, but for you to get there and to be able to have that reasoning, like, oh, okay, so this guy knows what he's doing, and he's obviously, the practicality of him is he's been on the ground building it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So you're already tapped into the fact that he's a resource. You're looking at everyone that's around you that's a resource, that's someone that understands it better than you do, even though you might understand the fundamentals better than them, but they understand the practicality of it.
They know how it works.
What a lesson, though, to pick up on that lesson and to have that understanding, and then to see that other engineer come in like, I'm the boss here, blah, 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 blah. And it's right. I mean, the minute you lay that flag out there like, I'm the man and that's all there is to it, you paint a big target on your back and no one wants to help you.
Absolutely.
So to have that, the gravitas, not so much so good in that situation. But you had enough to be able to look at it in the right frame of mind. It's like I say a prayer, and I ask God. I know this sounds kind of crazy to some people out there, but you know what? It is what it is. Sometimes we need a little help.
Absolutely.
And I always ask. Sometimes there's times where I'm a widowed dad. I'm tapped. 9 times out of 10, I've got 3 different brains going on at one time, especially when it comes to my kids, because a man brain sometimes, especially the way I was raised, there were such hard men around me. It was always a snap and a bite and a get it done now, and they didn't care. So it was really, really hard to deal with that as a kid. So me growing up now, that's my instinct. Plus I used to be a fighter. So for me, it's explosive, double explosive.
Absolutely.
So if you take that out of it and then you put all the reasoning into it, looking at my kid. What's up?
I'm just yawning.
No, okay, good. To be able to show them how to do things, and bring it back together. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought then. It's pretty remarkable, It's to be able to see and understand and use people the way you need to use them and rely on them, because they are. You could die at any moment in that environment, and they understand it. That guy coming in swinging axes, that's not good, man.
Not at all. And I'm so grateful for there's a whole crew out there, but just how welcoming they were. And I especially credit, this gentleman, Tom Niemeyer, who gave me space to demonstrate, okay, are you going to be an idiot or are you going to be a good guy? Yeah. And then put his arm around me. I still remember once we had a situation going on in part of the refinery we were responsible for. And we dealt with sulfur, and there was very poison gas, hydrogen sulfide gas, in that part of the refinery all the time. So you had to be very careful, and in any work you needed to do, there were special protective equipment that you had to wear, breathing apparatus and so forth. And I remember once we were out walking together, and there was an issue, and there was a kind of a stair that went up to a different level, and I said, "Hey, let's go check this out." And I started to climb, and Tom just grabbed my shoulder and he said, "Stop. There could be a leak. You die." And for him it was nothing. But for me, it just showed the care and concern that he had for people, and I've never forgot that.
Well, it's the best lesson. It probably carried you right into the next 20 years of your life.
Absolutely.
Forever, always.
Absolutely, great influence in my life.
When did you pivot from that and go into business?
So I worked at Exxon for about 5 years.
Okay.
And then I had always decided I wanted to go back to school. And again, I was fortunate to have mentors in my life. My dad had a mentor when we moved to New York, a gentleman named Kay Whitmore. He ended up being CEO of Kodak, Eastman Kodak. And he knew my dad really well. And as I was getting ready to go to school, my dad said, "Hey, I can't give you much advice. I'm the first one to go, and I don't really know much about." And so he asked Kay, "Would you spend a few minutes with Ken?" And so I visited with Kay, and he just, "What do I need to?" And he said, "Hey, here's my advice. Go get a technical college degree from a good school, whatever you want to do. Chemical engineering is fine. Get some work experience, and then go back and get the very best graduate degree that you can get." And that was his advice. And so, I gotten a technical degree at BYU in chemical engineering. I'd worked 5 years for Exxon. And then I said, okay, well, I'm going to go get the best graduate degree I can. And so I ended up going to Harvard Business School and just loved it. I had applied to Harvard Business School as an undergrad and had gotten in and decided to go to Brigham Young University instead. And so when it came time to go to graduate school, and I said, well, I'm going back to Harvard. I would love to go there. And was so grateful and so fortunate to be accepted. So it was really, again, a mentor who kind of put this stake out there that says, you will get work experience in some technical field, and then you'll go get a graduate degree. And that was the roadmap. And to be honest, it was foundational in my career. And I look back, it was a 30-minute conversation with a mentor of my dad who just took some time with me on a busy schedule, give me some advice.
That's amazing.
I'm so grateful, so fortunate to just had that 30-minute conversation.
Yeah. I've had a couple of key people like that in my life, but I haven't had many. Most of my parents gambled a lot, so they had really bad addictions with what they were doing. My father is my stepfather, adopted into that family sort of thing. It's I could only rely on him for certain. He's that guy. He'll paint a wall, take the money, and go gamble it. You know what I mean? That's how much of he's a. So he really didn't have a lot of knowledge or wisdom to give me. My real father, he was a go-getter. He did lots of things, but he was, he also slept around a lot with a lot of people, and that was kind of a bad scenario for my mum and him. But to see that someone with such my genes are a go-getter genes, like he had a business, he had all sorts of stuff going on. So I have that inside of me. But then I saw what my stepfather did my whole life. You know what I mean? It was quite such that having that situation, and then meeting. There's a guy called Troy Ellison. He was probably the first guy that pulled me out because I was 13 years old and I was in trouble. Like I was always in trouble. Yep. I think at that stage I left school too. And he pulled me aside and he said, "What are you doing?" And he sat down with me, and it just changed my world. But maybe if he was more educated, maybe I would have been different. You know what I mean? Because it's taken, like you say, two paths in lives. You can either go learn it if you've got the brain for it, and if you've got the support around you to do that, or you're going to learn it the hard way. I'm the hard way all the way. You know what I mean? But it's been enlightening in so many avenues. Plus, I have tremendous drive to go. You know what I mean? I've tried so many
I can tell that.
Crazy things. But having key people along the way just to sort of get you there, at the time it probably didn't seem like much at all. But just having that flag to say, do this, then pivot, to have an understanding is amazing. Like
I said, super grateful and foundational. And just a comment, you were saying learning kind of the hard way. It really takes a desire to learn, whether it's the easy or the hard way. And I look at someone like you who, as you kind of described it, maybe didn't have all of the opportunities that a lot of people or some people might have. but who said, this is what I want.
Yeah.
I'm going to go get this. I mean,
Oh, man.
seriously, congratulations. I mean, that's a big deal. And I look at the impact that my dad's decision had on me. None of his siblings went to college. What's really interesting, of all my cousins on my dad's side, I've got one that went to school, got an education degree, one got an associate's degree. But my dad's influence on us just caused us all to go to school. So, mentors, influence,
Big time.
it impacts generations.
No, no, well, I was just talking about this the other night. Like I've cut every tie to what I knew as growing up. I cut all of that. You know what I mean? I've looked at America's traditions throughout life. As a kid watching America, that's what, America was the one place to be. It's the winning team. And I would see how, especially like the Mormon families too, how they would interact, and I would dream about that for myself. Never had it. Had to change everything that I ever knew to be able to get myself in a position to create it. You know what I mean? So it's I've had to burn the bridges and forget about them, and then and build new ones that I had no idea. And crazy build, but I tell you what, I finally got to where I need to be.
Yeah.
I've had wins along the way, but I've had nothing significant. I spent over 10 years trying to act, and that's the hardest game ever. Anyone that's ever made it, they are diligent. You know what I mean?
It's unbelievable, yeah.
It's a hard game. So I've done all the pie in the sky dreaming things, and I'm still kind of there myself now, but I feel like I'm focusing better.
Congratulations to you. I mean, seriously, that's inspirational.
Yeah.
And to be able to share those experiences, to be able to have a platform to do that other people can hear, because I'll be honest, someone shared this with me. They said, if you treat everyone you meet as if they're going through an incredibly difficult situation, you're going to be right more than half of the time. And one of the things that I have learned, and I believe, is you're right a lot more than half of the time. So there's a lot of people out there going through hard things, and everyone's got their own mountain to climb, their own challenges. But to be able to hear, inspirational stories and say, well, Rob did it.
Yeah.
That's you just need that spark sometimes, when you're in that valley and you say, okay, but he did it. It's possible. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going up that hill. Anyways. Kudos to you. That's a big deal.
Yeah, it's true. It's hard though. What I wanted to sort of touch on with that as well is my boys don't understand what I went through. I tell them all the time. I explain the situation. I tell them how many hard things I went through as a kid, all the trials that I went through that no one would educate me on, and I learned the hardest way possible. I educate them. You know what I mean? Like I don't tell them everything. Obviously, there's I call it the pay grade. Your pay grade's not there yet. You
exactly.
can't know this, but this is the vicinity.
Age appropriate.
Yeah, age appropriate. But from here on out, they're gonna set that standard. My kids needed to do sports. They need to do that. And I'm really hoping that maybe by 3 generations from now, I'll have a strong family. You know what I mean? And I think if I could leave that as a legacy, I think that'd be amazing for me.
I think it will. And I do agree that the impact of one person on a family tree is dramatic.
Yep.
Just dramatic. So seriously,
no.
Well done.
Yeah, no, and dramatic. It's exactly right. You got to take it to that point to get it.
Yep.
So okay, so you go to Harvard of all places, which is a beautiful campus. I've been up there a few times. It's gorgeous, huh? Especially in the spring.
Yeah, my favorite time there, April, May.
That must be a really cool experience to be able to be there and stamp the ground and say, I did it. Where did you end up out of Harvard? Was it you meet lots of connections there, and did they help you build your career from that point forth, or was it all?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One of the things I do appreciate probably most was the people that I met, and I had an opportunity to rub shoulders with just some amazingly good human beings. The thing that I appreciate about that education for me was it did open some doors. There are companies that choose to recruit at just a limited number of universities. Bain & Company Consulting has a core group of universities that it recruits from, and it recruits MBAs into. And so I had an opportunity to go work at Bain & Company in their Dallas office. It's a large management consulting firm, and gave me opportunities to see a variety of industries, companies, people, and that happened because of their willingness to recruit at Harvard Business School.
Wow. It's a good advantage. I mean, you pay for it, right? You just being there is not cheap.
Lots of loans.
Lots of
loans.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. But it's an Ivy League. It's something that is definitely going to pay you for the rest of your days, which it has. You've done the right thing. What I kind of do, I want to touch on PetSmart a little bit. It touches my heart because talk about when you came into that, where the company was at that time, and then how you took it from there.
So PetSmart was a client of Bain, and I was assigned to the engagement team there. The story with PetSmart, founded, had grown just amazingly fast, really kind of filled a market niche, and they had gone public. The stock had gone up. It was about $30, and then probably because they expanded too fast, the stock went from $30 down to $3. So in a short period of time, they destroyed 90% of shareholder wealth. The board brought in a new CEO. The CEO brought in a new president. The president reached out to Bain and said, hey, we're at a point where we need help with a turnaround strategy. And I was assigned as a relatively young consultant onto that team. We spent a year helping Bain come up, or helping PetSmart come up with a turnaround strategy, really focusing on the customer. We call it a pet parent. And after that year, the engagement was over. President of PetSmart, a great mentor of mine, Bob Moran, he gave me an offer, said, I'd like you to come work for us. I'd like you to work in marketing. I'll get that in a second, because that was mind-blowing for me. But he said very pointedly, do you believe what you've been telling us this past year? I'm like, well, yeah, that's what we do. And then he said, well, why don't you stop telling people what to do? Why don't you join us and do something for a change? I mean, challenge thrown down. I was like, whoa. And the offer was to go run their marketing department, came in as a VP of marketing. My background remembers chemical engineering.
Yeah.
I didn't have, when I interviewed coming out of business school, I interviewed for a variety of jobs, but the one area I never looked in was marketing. I'm not a marketer. I don't understand colors. I don't understand. It's not what I do. And but Bob said, you've been leading the effort on customers. Customers deal with marketing. I want you in our marketing department, and put me there. Best career move I ever made. I didn't know what I was doing. I had a chance to work for two CEOs a year each, chief marketing officers a year each. Great mentors, helpful. They both left the company, and after that, Bob then said, hey, you're the chief marketing officer.
Go for it.
Yeah, and my wife, Diana, just on the floor laughing. You? Marketing? This is great. But it really shifted and helped me see things differently. And as far as my career goes, I learned new things I never thought I could do. Grateful for a wonderful team that I had the opportunity to work with, great people, but just amazing, and really developed a love for customers, consumers, people that love their pets.
Yeah, I would say you already love people at that stage, because you were pretty.
Absolutely, I always have.
It's like going to the oil fields. That taught you how to deal with, I'll say commoners, but maybe people that haven't got the education, things like that. It's a tricky scenario. You know what I mean? It's kind of like some people can really be stuck in high school mentality. So you got to play with that versus someone that's actually trying. So you're mixing all that into it. So then you get put into that position, and now you're a leader. You know, that's already taught you how to become that. That's so good. It's everything. It's almost like you've just had everything fall into place at the right time for you. It's like, as you learn, it opens up and doors open. It's so good.
I do feel very fortunate in those ways. And the opportunities that have come up I think have been just, I'm so grateful for that they've happened.
But you've also prepped for them. You know what I mean? Like you did the work. It's like, I don't know. It's like angels saw you do all the work that you've been doing throughout the time of what you've been doing, right? And they say, "Oh, this guy's diligent." You know what I mean? Okay, well, he can handle it. Just go. You know what I mean? It's hard to see, and some people think, you see someone that's doing really good in life, and it hurts sometimes. But really, you should be thanking to even get the chance to see that guy do that, because you could do the same. You're just not utilizing yourself as much as what he did.
One of the things I really learned from my dad was hard work.
Yeah.
When we were little, my dad got this great idea that it was during the oil crisis of the 70s. We needed to save money, all this. And so he said, we're going to put in a wood-burning stove. Okay. So he bought a wood-burning stove, installed it in the basement, and they said, okay, we need to go get wood. And so he would find local farmers all around and hey, can I buy timber off your land? And so he'd go buy timber, and then, he got a chainsaw, cut it down, and then every summer my dad would borrow this old rickety truck from a friend of his, Mark, and then we would go and into the woods, and he would saw stuff down, and we would split the wood, and we would haul it out. And we spent all summer long hauling wood and chopping wood and splitting wood, and then all winter long splitting and bringing in he taught us how to work.
Yeah.
I don't know that we ever saved any money with that wood-burning stove, but I'll tell you, my brother and I, we learned how to work.
Yeah.
And that I think opportunities, doors are there and doors open, but at some point you have to be willing to take a risk. Going into marketing in a retail pet company was never on the agenda. And hard work goes a long ways.
Absolutely. But let's talk about, so you flipped that around. How much did you grow in that company? Like, what was the steps of progression? I know we kind of coming to the back end of it, but...
Yeah, so it was great. I had the opportunity to start as a VP of marketing. I was chief marketing officer for a bunch of years. Then our head of merchandising. And in a retailer, merchandising is all the products, the pricing, the products, the placement, working with suppliers. He left the company, and once again, Bob came to me and said, you're the chief merchant. And I'm like, Bob, I don't know anything about this. And so once again had the opportunity to walk into a new area, get to learn it, and see what I could do to help make it better. Later in the career at PetSmart, Bob said, hey, why don't you learn something about international? I went up and I was a store manager in Phoenix. I was a district manager and a regional head in Western Canada. I got to open 4 stores in Puerto Rico. So there's this idea of there's a new challenge, you don't know what to do, but chemical engineering taught me how to learn. Working in a refinery taught me to work with the people. You've got people that know what they're doing. And so it just opened doors and ended up being just amazing. I ended up working at PetSmart 11, 12 years. Just an amazing experience.
Yeah, it sounds like you're a really good problem solver.
I love that.
Yeah.
I do.
It's kind of fun, huh?
It is.
Especially when you bring it and it works. I mean,
Yep.
and you flipped, let's talk about it. You flipped PetSmart. You turned that place around, right?
Yeah, we had a great team. Lots of us that were engaged in that process. And again, when I started, stock was about $3. It would go back up to over 30 and then 40 and then 60. And eventually, a year or so after I left PetSmart, it ended up going private. And I don't remember exactly. I think stock was up north of $80 by then.
That's
so if you look at value creation, 3 to 30 is 10 times, another up to 80 or 90, just amazing. And again, a massive team effort. One of the things I loved about PetSmart, we had a great team. So it wasn't one person, but Bob Moran and Phil Francis, who was there as well, built just an amazing team of individuals, and they trusted us. They let us go to work.
No, it's really cool. We're coming to the end of the hour. Is there anything that you want to touch on for the people out there, or?
The only thing I would just share is, life gives you different opportunities, different choices. And, I've pivoted. I've been able to come into higher ed now. I love it. The thing that I really enjoy is working with people. And whether you have challenges or opportunities, there's so much you can learn from the people around you. If you're willing not to be the smartest person in the room, if you're willing to learn from the Tom Niemeyers and the people around you, there's opportunities to do great things. I drive an hour back and forth every day to come to work here, and I do it because I just love the people that I work with, and that just goes a long ways.
Yeah. Take a pause when you're dealing with people, guys. Take a 3-second break, and just look at the situation and see what they're going through. Maybe they're going through something you don't know nothing about. Cut them some slack.
Absolutely.
I have one question for you.
You bet.
And it has to do with anything, whatever comes to mind. What makes the difference?
That's a great question. Probably deserves a lot more time, but at the end of the day, I think what makes the difference is if you can care for the people you work with, if you're willing to put in time and effort, some combination of hard work, love for others, makes a big difference. I had another mentor who suggested you want to be hard-minded but soft-hearted. Hard-minded in business, so you do the right things, make the hard decisions, you look at the numbers, you're really hard-minded, but never ever get hard-hearted. You're dealing with real-life human beings. You need to have a soft heart, and when you do, the combination can get you where you need to go.
I love that. Ken, thanks for coming in today.
My pleasure.
Sitting down with you is a privilege for me. It's something I've been looking forward to, so I really do appreciate it. If you're out there at YouTube, thank you very much for tuning in. If you've listened this long, thank you. I appreciate it. We'll be back again next Friday. Thanks, Ken. We're going to Old Town Road.